Hey everybody, welcome to episode 28 of Restoration Z. I'm going to basically get the bike done today. I have a few jobs to do. The headlight, unfortunately, still hasn't arrived, and with recent information in the news about USPS and the problems they're having of mail going unscanned and just sat in places, I imagine it could be another couple of weeks before the light turns up. So I'm going to put the original light back on and finish the bike off, and then when the light arrives I'm going to do an install video of its own and a review video a little bit down the road. It kind of makes more sense to do it that way because when people buy this kit, which is like a drop-in kit, you will start with a stock headlight and people might want to see that coming off and the new one going on rather than just the new one going on. So it is kind of a shame that it's not 100% done. But as I say, the light's a drop-in unit, the fairing's no different, so the only difference is the way it looks and what light it puts out. So we'll get to that in the future. I need to take the seat back off, take these plastics back off, because what I want to do is every single one that goes back on, I'm going to make sure it's got nice new bolts using the bolt kit we bought, because then they'll be shiny and visible. So I need to basically, you know, take these off and make sure I've got bolts for everything, put those back on. The tank shrouds, which are just out of shot here, they need to go back on. And one last thing before we get on, if you remember in the last episode I mentioned how this new side fairing hasn't got the heat protector in it. This stuff is like 40 quid for a piece this big. I couldn't believe how expensive it was. I'm sure someone's going to say eBay, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm actually not too concerned about it because with this exhaust on it, which is carbon fibre, and it is real carbon fibre, it's always cool enough to touch. Yeah, it gets warm, but it's not like it's never going to burn you, in my experience. Also, the air gap between the plastics and the exhaust is about 3 or 4 fingers width all the way through. Then the closest actual point is between the exhaust pipe itself and the very edge of the plastics here, on this edge on the original. This part here is much closer than the rest of it, and as you can see on the original, there's no melting on this edge. So I have no concerns about the new plastic getting damaged by the heat. With the stock metal exhaust that came with this bike, yes, I'm sure that is definitely needed. But with this carbon can, I'm not too worried. I'm going to get on and do that because I don't think you want to watch me taking bolts out and putting bolts in. But I will get back to you once I start putting the fairings on, the fender, the headlight. It's going to be good. As you can see, it looks barely any different to you, but there's been about an hour's work because I had to take the seat off, take the bolts out, change those to the right length ones, try and get everything to line up. It's obvious that these plastics kind of aren't all the same shape, and like the door, which the airbox door, kind of fits into a slot, and it didn't quite want to fit, so I got it in, moved it around, and plunk, and it's gone in. I think over time they'll like relax, and just that'll be the shape they're in. Because I tried the old one, and that slotted in straight away. So I know it wasn't that I'd placed something wrong. It was just that door, that panel's slightly twisted, slightly not quite in the right shape, but I'm sure it will train as it gets warm and cools and, you know, whatever. Oh, the other reason it took an hour is because I went through and found every bolt that I needed to put the fairings on, cut down ones I needed to make sure I had the right length, found all the washers, got all the bits and pieces so I can just get stuff on now. Oh, one other little job I did was this little piece of metal that sticks out here is one of the attachment points for the headlight shroud. Here, here and here. These are 6mm, that was 5mm. I got a new bolt, tried it, and it was a bit wobbly in there, and I looked at the threads and they were a bit chewed some of the way in. I can improve that, but it's risky. So I tapped it to a 6mm. I had 3 taps, you know, first starting, middle and the end one, and just worked through very carefully with cutting oil, blowing it out. Took half an hour to do it, never put any more pressure on it than fingertip pressure. I didn't risk any chances of snapping the tap off in there because this is a blind hole and I cannot get to the back of it to like get the tap out. Long story short, it's now 6mm. So with thanks to Suzuki GB and Haslemere Motorcycles, they are the ones who got this entire plastics kit for me. Amazing, thank you so much. Literal dream come true. You see, my original one, when I bought the bike, had some really deep scores going through here. I mean, really deep. Like someone had got like a drill and rubbed it on there, which meant that I could never polish them out, which means it could never have been right. Job number 1, got to pop these little standoffs in. This means that when you pin the fender in place, rather than it pinning on the plastic, it pins on the actual metal thing that goes through it. They've got a little shoulder collar thing that goes through a hole. The turkey baster mod, if you saw the previous video, that is working. It actually sucked the liquid back through into the system, so there's only a little bit sat in the bottom, whereas before it was much further up. And this is the bottle that it replaced. I found it. This used to fill up, like the amount that it would go up and down was only ever like a little bit. So I know that that is going to account for it. It'll be fine. Okay, so that just pops on there. It's very important to make sure you get the right size screws when you're screwing into toward the tank like this, because if you obviously put one that's in it that's too long, you could punch a hole straight through the side of your tank. What's quite interesting is that when I got these Ace Abyss handguards, I noticed that this blue was more like a Yamaha blue. It's hard to explain. It's more like it's a purpley blue than a blue blue. This is like an electric blue, and this is like a more of a duller blue. None of them really match. In fact, this doesn't fully match, but you know, that's just the way it is. You probably can't even notice the difference on camera because it's that close. It's just the human eye that can, and you're being really picky human eye, that can notice these things. Once the bike had cooled down, I also took the radiator cap off, undid the bleed screw, and just to see if it needed anything topping up, and it actually didn't. It was completely fine. But you normally do that, and then if it's a little bit low, you can just drop a bit more in then. Coolant, that is. This should be pretty easy to put back on because the adjustment of this light is done through these screws here. The side ones onto this outer cage don't move. So when I put this back on, it'll be aligned correctly still. Just noticed a few drips of coolant on the floor and was like, oh God, why? And it was the best thing it could have been. It was one of the Jubilees. When I took that radiator on and off multiple times, I forgot to do the inner Jubilee up. Annoying as hell when I put the bike back together because I had to do it with this tiny spanner. But point being, the leak has stopped. Anyway, the electrics is all now together. Yes, it really does just bundle up into a ball like this with this plastic bag around it. That's just the way it is. Check the light. High beam, low beam, indicators, pass light. Horn? Oh. Ah. See, I mounted that on a different bracket. I think I've removed the resonance. I need a rubber washer. Because Derek's got a cold. Are you okay, Derek? Okay, well, it's been a day since that last piece of video was filmed, and the bike is basically now done. Well, it's not, because I haven't got the headlight yet. That is in the post still. And hopefully it shouldn't be delayed much longer. I don't know. The other thing I'm waiting for is tyres. I hopefully have got a deal sorted out to get a bit of a discount on a set of tyres, but I won't know an answer to that until next week, which means I can't film the reveal video yet because I want to make sure it's fully complete before I do that. So maybe I'll just do videos on it and then just do a reveal later. Like, sure, forget continuity in a timeline. I mean, 60% of the people who watch it probably won't be subscribers anyway, so it'll make no difference to them, but whatever. So yeah, that's what I'm waiting on. The bike is basically done. It also needs to have a bit of a polish because everything's a little bit greasy. However, I did do some testing rides yesterday, like, you know, going around the block, seeing if there were any issues, going around the block a couple of times, seeing if there was any issues, going a bit further, coming back. Zero problems. The bike is feeling fantastic. Like, so good compared to the way it was before. The suspension is feeling fantastic. I wonder how long that damper's not been right, if you go back many episodes. Basically, the thing feels great. So as soon as I get new tyres on it, it's just going to go because that's, as I say, that's one of the problems. The front tyre is legal still, but it's borderline. And it's like, well, I shouldn't really ride it too much till I get the tyres on it. And I can't really push it with that tyre on there. So I do have a couple more episodes for the series to do. Being, well, obviously the headlight whenever that arrives. But also I want to do a couple of roundup type things. So I'm going to do one video which will be a Q&A. So in the comments of this video, I'm going to do a Q&A on Restoration Z. Only questions about the build series. This isn't a patron only one like my normal monthly Q&A. I thought I'd open this to everyone. If you've been watching and hitting the like button, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And if you are one of my patrons, you've still got this month's Q&A to do. And if you want to ask a question related to it that no one asks, go ahead. And the other one I'm going to do, which might be part of the reveal video, kind of makes sense, I guess. Or maybe I'll make that the reveal video. I don't know. I'll work it out. Is just going through and explaining, like, every single job I've done to the bike and how much it's basically cost me. It's very true to say that with what I've put monetarily into this build, plus all the free parts, quite a bit of value in parts has been sunk into this bike, and rightfully so, because this bike is bloody brilliant and it deserves to be looked after as well as it has been. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to do in this episode is, some people have asked me to do this in the past. Mentioned I had a box of all of the original bits from this bike that I've taken off over time. Well, I have another box to add to it, and some people said, could we have a look at that? It'd be interesting to see. Sure, why not? I don't know what's in this box. I haven't been in it for a few years. It's been up in the loft. What I do know is that the amount of parts, that the OEM parts that are no longer on this bike, is quite impressive. Okay, so this is the stuff I've taken off in the past. The original toolkit bag. I have the toolkit still. I have it in a cupboard. The original indicators, all 4 of them. The giant Suzuki ones that you'll recognise from many bikes from that era. And going back away, because they've been using the same ones for a while. Then next we have part of the pair valve system, because I've removed the pair valve from this and blanked it all off and removed all the hoses. You'll see more of them in a minute. Doesn't class as an OEM part. It's just an old clutch cable that still is kind of functioning, so if my cable snaps I could use that one for a few days. The original mirrors. Original rubber from one of the levers. The original levers. The pillion strap which goes across the seat and all of its nuts and bolts. Another hose that came off the carb. The rubbers off of the pegs because I prefer to just feel the metal rather than have these slippery rubbers on. But they're supposed to take vibrations out. The original frame protection. I've only got 3 of them because one of them fell out on its own at some point. And yeah, this is what, as far as I know, is the stock thing. And as you can see, it just goes in and just kind of sits there. It doesn't actually really do much. I think my skateboard ones are quite a bit stronger. OEM clutch springs, side stand kill switch, a zip tie, the original like plastic pistons from the front brake, the automatic cam chain tensioner because I've changed that one to a manual, the helmet lock, you know, it's on the back of the bike so you can lock your helmet to it. A connector that went to something that I've blocked off, but I kept the connector just in case I ever needed it back. Master cylinder piston, I have no idea why I have that. Snorkel, which by no means is a 3x3 mod, but does allow a bit more air in. There's also the original jets in there, because I've rejetted this bike. The original piston and bore is inside, but that's never going to go back on the bike. Right, so the stuff that I removed in this build. The expansion chamber. Another zip tie. Some more OEM zip ties. Another one. No, a few more. Another one. There's another one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, and another one. Then you have the original water hoses. These are all fine. I just changed them because I wanted the nice looking ones. Yep, all of those. And that one. And that one. And that one. And that one. Oh, of course there was that one, then that one. Footplate, which highlights the fact that I don't know where the other one is. I'll have to try and find that today as I have my sort out. Clutch lever, and not original lever, because obviously the original levers are in here. How much smaller were they? Did they work out to be? Yeah, they're about the same-ish. Anyway, front brake hose clamp. Fork bleeder screws. The original rollers. I don't know why I'm keeping these, but they do still function. And the only reason I actually changed them is because they had some little grooves in them, but I don't know, maybe one breaks and I need a spare one for a minute. Then some more of the carb, being the solenoid that restricts full throttling first, second and something for European bikes. In there is the original rear piston. Well, it's not plastic, so maybe it's not the original. But anyway, it is a functioning part, and again, should I need something in a pinch, I have one that will work for a few days. That's why I keep things like this. I keep them for a few years. When I get another one, I chuck this one out and replace it, and it means I've always got some backups. There's some seals, and I'm not even entirely sure if these go to this bike. Well, they obviously do because they're Suzuki, but oh, and there's some more. How many seals did I have? I used some of those. Then there's an assortment of bolts and washers and stuff that have all been replaced because of something else that's gone on, or because the new ones are shinier than these. So as you can see, other than like the hosing, which is being directly replaced, that is a lot of stuff that's been taken off of this bike. I'm going to call an end to this episode here. As I say, the bike is done, and I'm sorry to tease with the reveal, but you can understand, I want to do a reveal video. That's one of the fun things of doing a series like this. And if the headlight turned up and I didn't have to wait till next week for tyres, I could do that today. But unfortunately, I can't. As I say, I'm also going to go through the paperwork and work out the prices of everything and do a video on that. So maybe that'll be the next one. I'm not entirely sure. It took nearly 3 months to do this bike, and that's longer than it should have taken. Really. But there was a lot of delays and stuff, and it wasn't for a lack of effort, because, well, my patrons can testify the hours that I was working. Anyway, until the next one, a huge thanks to everyone who's been hitting the like button and watching these videos. A massive thanks to the companies that helped me out. Links to all of those are in the description. I think you probably know all of them by now. And a massive, massive thank you to my patrons. It's you guys that allow me to keep doing this. Seriously, without you, YouTube alone wouldn't be able to cover my bills. So thank you very much for supporting me through this build and through this difficult time we're in. Catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.